We are going to discuss about the chapter 4 of informatica training. In this we are going to load the data into STG employees table, business case 7. We will use two different transformations to load the data. One is joiner and the other is lookup transformation. We'll discuss about the reusable transformations and also we'll discuss about the lookup transformation. Just review the previous chapter. In that we have discussed about to load the data into STG customer table. The requirement was to filter the data whose customer number is 99999 and customer number is null, to filter and load the data into the target table. So to filter the data, we use the filter transformation. The purpose of filter transformation is to filter the data based on the condition. Whichever record satisfy the condition will be sent to the next transformation or to the target. Whichever record does not satisfy the condition, it will filter the data. It's nothing but restriction the data. In an SQL you write in the where clause to restrict the data. And also in that mapping we have discussed about concatenating the first name, last name, reformatting the phone number, and based on the condition, the gender we have loaded, and also the age group. To do the data manipulation, we have used the expression transformation. To filter the data, we use the filter transformation. Filter transformation is to filter the data when your source is a flat file or a table. And also you will use filter transformation to filter to load data into multiple targets. So in the STG customer table, we filtered the data manipulated by using expression transformation and filtered the data and loaded the data into STG customer table. Then Informatica provides you with another transformation called a router transformation, which works same as filter, which came from version 5 and above. In the filter transformation of loading data into multiple targets, we have used the employee table and loaded the data into 3 target tables based on different filter conditions. In the filter transformation, how many filter transformations you will use, it will read the input data that many times and test for all the conditions. Whereas in a traditional programming, if you use if then else if to load data into multiple targets, if the record satisfies the first condition, then it will not test for the other conditions in the loop. Whereas in a filter transformations, how many filter transformations you use in a mapping, each record will test it for all the filter conditions and each record will be read by all the filter transformations. Now in the router transformation is also used to load data into multiple targets. It has 2 groups called input group and output group. Input group is the data coming into the router transformation and the output group data going out. Here the output group is again divided into user-defined group and the default group. User-defined group is nothing but the group conditions or filter conditions which you specify for different filter conditions. In the router transformation, it will read the input data once, but test for all the group conditions, all the user-defined group conditions, and whichever record satisfies that group condition will be sent to the next transformation or to the next target. If the record does not satisfy any of the group user-defined group conditions, then the record goes to the default group, which is created automatically by the router transformation as soon as you create a single user-defined group. So data which does not satisfy any of the group conditions will go to the default group. You can take it out as per your requirement or you can ignore it. So the difference between a filter and a router is filter reads the input data. How many filter transformations you have, it will read the input data that many times and test the data for all the filter conditions. Whereas a router will read the input data only once and test the records for all the user-defined groups. And if a record does not satisfy any of the user-defined group, it will go to the default group. This is what we have done in the chapter 6. Now we are going to discuss about the chapter 7 of loading data into STG employees table. using joiner, using lookup transformations. We will use reusable, we'll discuss about reusable transformation, we'll discuss about lookup transformation also. Let us take the business case 7. Based on this mapping, you have to load the data into STG employees table. And if the employee ID is null coming from the source, you need to load the data into error employees table. The requirement is the data is coming in flat file source in 3 flat files: employee east, employee central, employee west. The text files, these are all tab delimited files. And also there is a file which has salaries of each employee in the salaries file. Now the requirement is you have to extract the data from the flat file and load the data into STG employee table, concatenate the first name, last name, the phone number and the gender, and also you need to load data into this STG employee table, the salary data. Salary data is coming from salary.txt file for each employee, and also you have to find out the age group like we did it in the previous example. Plus, the requirement says that if the employee ID is null, the data has to be loaded into the error employees table. Means if the employee ID is not null, that the data has to be loaded into the STG employees table. So the requirement data is coming from flat files. Regarding 3 flat files, we will discuss after this example how to load data from multiple files. After the chapter 7, we will discuss in chapter 8 multiple file loading. Now, for this example, we will extract the data from employee_east.txt file and load the data into STG employees table if the employee ID is not null. If the employee ID is null, then we load it into error employees table. Before we load the data into these tables, we have to manipulate the data. Plus, in the target table for employee salary, salary data is not coming from employees, it is coming from salary.txt file. So, what we do, there are 2 sources, employees and salaries also as a flat file. Let us discuss this. In the C: class and we have the file called employees. And also we have the file called salaries.txt, which has each employee ID and their corresponding salary. So you have 2 sources, 2 flat files. So how will we go about this? Before we start the mapping, let us discuss the strategy. There are 2 source files. One contains the employees. This contains employees of the East in a .txt file, and regarding the salaries, it is in the text file. So to join these tables, 2 flat files, then we will use join a transformation. Then to manipulate the data, calculate the expression, concatenate first name, last name, all data manipulation, we will do it by using expression transformation. Then 4, we need to load data into multiple targets where the employee ID is not null. Then we have to load that data into STG employee table, and wherever the employee ID is null, need to load the data into error employees table. So this is your requirement to be loaded into the stage employees and error employees table. So whenever you do anything in the mappings, have a map in your mind. Let us assume this is your two sources. Then you will join them in a joiner. Like this is your employee file. This is your salaries. This is your source qualifier. To join two flat files, then you use a joiner transformation. Then we will use an expression. Picture in your mind. Whenever you do anything in your mappings, have the map in your mind. We will use a router here to load the data into multiple targets. This will be your input group. Then we'll have two group conditions. One to load the data into STG employee. The group condition employee ID not null. Another group condition we will put it as where employee ID is null. So that we will load the data into two target tables. One is into your STG employee, the other is your error employee. So this is how you should have the picture in your mind. So let us go to the mapping and create it. First we need to define the source, define the target structure, then we'll build the mapping. So let us define the source. Source import from file. Under the class examples, let us take employees. Import the field names from the first line. Next it is tab delimited file. So you select tab delimited. Next, based on the data, it will select the data types. Employees. Another source. Go to SQL and class examples, salaries. Import the field names from the first line. It is a comma delimiter. So you have employee ID and the salary of each employee. Then we will define the target from STG employee and error employee, because we need to load data into two target tables. Select this and say OK. Then we'll go and create the mapping. Create m_7_ STG_ employee _. I'll name this as a joiner. So get the two files, employees and the salaries. Then our target tables. Please be careful, it is not this STG, it is STG_ employee and error _ employee. Then what we do with the two sources, two flat files. So what we will use a transformation, create joiner. We are joining on the employee ID So I name it as joiner underscore employee ID. And take the complete data from this and put it into this joiner and employee ID and the salary from my salaries file. Best practice, rename this and specify the join condition. Employee ID underscore salary to employee ID. Be careful here. It is employee ID to employee ID. Ports, I made this as a master port. So as we discussed, master data at runtime, when you put the master port for this salary, so salary data will come into the joiner cache, and detailed data will come and scan the cache based on the employee ID. So I specified the join type as normal join. Then I say OK. As per our discussion, what we need a transformation, create expression of HTG underscore employee, or I say employee so as per our mapping specification document, we need to concatenate the first name and the last name. So what are the columns required? Please check it here. That's the way you put it here so that your life will be easy. I need employee ID, first name and the last name. Then I concatenate the first name, last name. So I create a field called employee name, string, 26 characters. Please be careful at the data types and the precision. And I concatenate the first name and the last name, comma, last name, which we have done in the STG customers. Then address, city, state, zip code, country, phone number. So phone number we have to format it. I name it as phone number. Output, make it as a string of 15 characters, make it as output port. Take the same thing which we have done with the STG customers. So validate. Then as per your target, what you need, fax number, email, gender. Again, you need to calculate the gender out. String, and the formula for it, the previous one which we have discussed, the decode function. What we need, age, so employee age, and the age group we need to calculate, like the previous example. The formula for this is decode function. Before that, he needs the salary between the gender and the age. So we will take the salary which is here and put it here, and we toggle it. This is called toggling. We can move the ports up and down. So just to make it this sequence the way it is in the target table, that makes your life easy. when you develop the mappings. So after gender it is salary, so I toggle the salary. Then it needs native language, second language, third language, position type. I drag and drop. That it needs the dealership ID, which is the first column. So I drag and put it here for dealership ID. Then regional manager, dealership manager, hire date and date entered. Do not forget to copy these columns, please. For subsequent mappings, we need these columns when we discuss SED type 2. So do not forget to take these columns. So this is your expression transformation. We join in the joiner and the expression transformation. Now we need to load data into multiple targets. So I will use the transformation called router. As we discussed, router as input group and user-defined out groups. So whichever is coming into the router transformation will be the input. So which one I will take? Employee, employee name, address, state, zip code, country, phone number out, fax number, email, gender out, salary, age group, and all the other columns. Be careful which columns you are taking in. We don't need the phone number. We reformatted it. We don't need the first name and last name because the target needs employee name. So the same way gender out and age group. So drag and drop onto the router transformation. Which data is coming in, that is called the input group. As soon as you drag and drop, you will put it in this input group. Now please be focused how to create user-defined groups. What is the condition we need? One condition, their employee ID is not null. Another condition is their employee ID is null. So in the user-defined groups, how to create, please be focused. Transformation, you can describe it. Ports, you cannot manipulate anything. Data is coming in, that's why it is all input group. Now we'll create the group conditions. There is nothing in the properties. Groups, that is nothing but filter conditions or group filter conditions. As soon as I add a new group, automatically a default group comes in. So whenever you create a user-defined group, automatically as soon as you create it, a default group comes in. Give a meaningful name. Let's say we are going to load this data into the STG employee table. What's our condition? Not where employee is not null. How it is written? Not is null. On which port you are doing? Employee ID. This is the syntax. Please write it down. Not is null employee ID means whichever record has null, does not have null value, that record goes out of this user-defined group. So not is null employee ID. Another group condition, you can toggle this. I want to load it into error employee table. So I say the syntax is null employee ID. So one condition for not is null, another condition is null employee ID. This is the way you define the user group with the router transformation. The data which is coming in is the input group. As soon as you create the group conditions, user-defined group conditions, whatever the ports are there in the input group, automatically all the ports will come in these group conditions. Then this is error employee group condition. then a default group. So whichever record does not have employee ID null value, that data has to go to your STG employee table. So you drag and drop onto this. Then whichever employee ID has a null value, then drag and drop onto your target table and save your work. Arrange all, iconic. So this is how you build a mapping which has a joiner, expression, and a router transformation. So in the router transformation, to make you understand once again, I just created for you the router transformation. You can have multiple router transformation, but to make you understand how it works, I redo it for a sample only. I don't need a second router at all, so I'm just creating it. Whichever data comes into this, that is called the input group. So whichever columns coming from your expression into this router transformation, that is called the input group. Now, based on what condition you want to filter it and route the data, it's called under the groups tab. This is called the group filter condition. You add one condition we want is to load data into STG employee table. Just I give a meaningful name, a understandable name. Then in the filter group filter condition, I specify the condition that is not is null employee ID. So as you observe, as soon as you create a one user defined group, automatically the default group comes in. I want another group condition. You can toggle it for my error employee, a meaningful name, so that as soon as I see the group name, I can understand it. Then you write the condition is null employee ID. So at runtime, when the record comes in, if the record satisfies, data comes in, if the record satisfies the condition that is employee ID is not null, then it will go into this. It will test for both group conditions. If satisfies this condition, then the data goes out. So this is how you create a router transformation. I will delete it so that just for your discussion sake, because we are doing router first time, so I have shown you that. But this is the way the mapping is built. Now please open your ETL specification document sheet. And please write it down this first. So source is 2 flat files, target is MODBC connection. Now I'll create the session for this. Then I will explain you how this process works. Task developer, task create session s_m_7_ stg_employee_ joiner. Double click, mapping, source. So here we specify two sources, so two source connections. Two sources are flat files, so we specify the path c:/inf server src_files employee east, and for salaries also it is in the same path of your Informatica server. You are loading the data into two target tables, so two connections. It is under STG, change bulk to normal, error employee table. For me it is trainer STG, for you it is STG_ your ID, change bulk to normal, and you say OK. And save your work. Please open your worksheet and please write it down this of the path of for 10.9a. So session log file, session name, file directory, file name, file type, file directory, because we have two sources, two targets. Please write it down. So please write down this, then we will execute this and see what happens. So let me go ahead and create the workflow for this. Close the previous workflow, drag your session here, WSF 7_STG_ employee_ join it, and now execute this. Right click and say start workflow. Data succeeded. Let us go and check the data in the database. STG employee. This is the data loaded, concatenated the first name, last name, employee phone number reformatted, employee gender, salary, age group. Now, how many records it has loaded? Let's check. 27 records it has loaded. No records loaded into the error employees table. Means is that there is no record in that employee east with an employee ID null. Let us see. So employee east. If we observe the data here, actually how many records are there in this file? There are, if you look at the, let's say, view status bar, and you put the cursor on the notepad, it will show you the line number here. Actually 29 lines. If you remove the header, it will be 28 records with one employee ID null. With employee ID, one record with null value. So 27 records have been loaded, but in the error employee table, data has not been loaded. Why? In the stage employee table, it has loaded the records, record count 27, that is fine, but it may not load the data in the error employees table. Why? It has not loaded. Let us check. Now, let us look at it from a mapping perspective. When you have executed this session through that workflow, what happened? That's what I want to show you, and let us discuss that, why it has not loaded. So you have employees file and salaries file, two source qualifiers, then you join them in the joiner transformation. This employee ID which is coming from your east is equal to employee ID of salaries employee ID, that is the condition you have specified in the joiner transformation. Then you made the salaries source data which is coming in, that has master port, Let me go back and show you in the designer, the joiner transformation, ports. So data coming from the salaries, you made it as a master port. Then we specified the condition. Here also specified expression. We have concatenated the first name, last name, got the salary from the employee. I cannot put all the columns because I cannot show you here. Then in the router transformation, we have kept the input group, one output group. I am not able to show you the default group because space visualization will be a challenge. Please assume there is a default group. One condition not is null employee ID, the other condition is null employee ID, then the error employee table. Now when you execute this session in the workflow, what happens? Informatica server goes to the two sources based on the path, extracts the data, puts it in the Informatica server. Then whichever you made the source, that whole data will come into the joiner transformation and it puts it in the joiner cache. Because it is a master port, so it has put the complete data into the joiner cache. Then it releases the first record from your detail source, 101, scans the data based on your join condition, whichever it satisfies the join condition. So 101 scans the cache. So condition, based on the condition, it scans the cache, satisfied, 101 is equal to 101. So that record goes out of your joiner transformation to the expression. Then goes to the router, output of expression, concatenate the first name, last name, goes to your router, input group, then test for the group conditions. Is not is null employee ID. Both conditions, for both the group condition, it will test the data. So it satisfied this condition. So the record goes out and gets inserted into the stage employee table. When the second record comes in, please observe here 102 bill gauge coming from your employee east file. I'm talking about Informatica server is execution process. 102 scans the cache of joiner for 102 based on the join condition, satisfies. So the record goes out. Concatenate the first name, last name, goes into the router transformation, checks for the condition, not is null employee ID, true, goes out and gets inserted into the stage employee table. Third record comes in, that is 103 Ajay and the last name Kumar. On joiner transformation scans the cache of employee ID of the salary, satisfies, and outputs of the salary takes out. Concatenate the first name, last name, goes to the router transformation, satisfies the condition 103 is not null, so goes to the stage employee table, gets inserted. Now as we discussed in the employee file, there is an employee ID with a null value. Here also there is an employee ID with a null value. That will be the output of the detail. Scans the cache. For null employee ID, it scans the cache and the salary does not exist. So condition failed. If the condition failed, it will drop the record. It will not take it to the next transformation. So this record null Ram Kumar, for null it will scan the cache, does not exist. So the record will be dropped in the joiner transformation. It will not go further down. That is the reason that record was not coming to this router transformation and getting loaded into the error employee table. So what we will do? To make that data which is coming from your employee east, all the data from employee east should pass through this joiner transformation. Whichever record satisfies the join condition, then corresponding salary has to be taken out. To do this, if you do the equi join, that is normal join, If the join condition fails, the record will not be taken out to the next transformation. So what we do? Now, yesterday I asked you, in the previous chapter I asked you, there are different types of join types: normal join, master outer join, detail outer join, full outer join. Let's read the help for what are these join types. Join type. Let me read master outer join. The master outer join, if you enable master outer join, what it does? It keeps all rows of data from the detailed source and the matching rows from the master source. It discards the unmatched rows from the master source. So, the condition is a master outer join keeps all rows of data from detailed source. Means it will get you all the data from the detailed source. So in our case, we need complete data from the employees. All 4 records should be loaded either into stage employee or an employee table, and whichever satisfies the condition, that salary has to come out. So what we do, we will enable master outer join. The reverse of it is detail outer join. A detail outer join keeps all rows of data from master source and the matching records from the detail source. Full outer join, data from both the sources, master and detail sources. In our case, we need all the data from the employees, and which one we made the master? The salaries source we made the master. So we need the complete data from the detail source and the matching record rows from the master source. So here detail source is employee east. That's the reason we'll put the join type as master outer join. Then change this to master outer join and you say OK and save your work. Now I'll delete the data in my stage employee table so that we will rerun this and check it. Whenever after you create the session, if you change anything in your mapping, then go to that workflow, open the task, open this session, let's say refresh the mapping. Sometimes it will show in red cross, invalid, but it says save, that will be saved. If there is a red cross, then it is invalid mapping, invalid session or invalid mapping. So that's the reason we changed the join type to master outer join to get all the data from the detailed source, in our case employees. Now we'll execute this. Right click and say start workflow. Succeeded. Let's go to the database, check the data in the stage employee table, record count 27, select the data from error employees table. So a single employee ID with null value has been loaded into this. And there won't be any salary because there is no employee ID with a salary in the employee file. So this is how a join a transformation with master outer join. Regarding the other examples, please read yourself. Then we will discuss about how to do the same mapping with using a transformation called a lookup. Now we are going to discuss about the same mapping of extracting the data from employees, loading the data into a stage employees table, and if the employee ID is null, then loading the data into error employees table and getting the salaries from the salaries.txt file for each employee. Same requirements, same concept, but the only thing is we will use a different transformation here. So what we do as per the discussion which we did from the same loading data into SPG employee table and error employee table, but we used a joiner transformation. Now the same concept is we will use a different transformation. So to extract the data from the source employee_is.txt file, we'll extract it from there. Then we will, as per the ETL specification document, we'll concatenate the first name, last name, reformat the phone number, and we'll do the gender. We'll find the gender, full name like female or male or unknown. We'll also do the age group. Now to get the data from the salaries.txt file, we will introduce a new transformation called lookup transformation. Before we go further down, let us discuss how we are going to achieve this. Let's say you have the employee list. You have the employee list file. That is your source. So we will have a source qualified transformation, and we will concatenate the first name and the last name, data manipulation by the expression transformation. Now if you observe the data from here to here, we are getting the employee ID, employee name, concatenated first name and last name. Now we have to load data into multiple target tables. We will use a router transformation. And the same way like we did in the previous two group conditions, one for where employee ID is not null, one group condition, another condition is where employee ID is null. So you have two target tables. One is SPG target table, the other is error target table. So if we observe that from employees we are getting every data except we need the salary to be loaded into the target table. There is a salary column to be loaded into the target table for each employee. And our salaries information is coming from a separate flat file called salaries.txt. This file contains the purpose of lookup transformation is to look towards the database objects or flat files to find that corresponding value exists or related value exists. Means my employee is coming from my source, looks up, or looking towards that file to find is my for this corresponding employee ID salary exists or not. Related value means as informatica does row by row process, one record at a time. One employee ID comes in, let's say 101, looks up in the salaries file, does my record corresponding salary exists or not. If it exists, give me that value, related value. For that purpose, they use a transformation called lookup transformation. Getting a related value or verifying if a record exists or if a data is changed in that object, database object or in a flat file. In that scenario, they use lookup transformation to get a related value or if the record exists or if data has changed. looks up for corresponding record. So in our case, the employee ID is coming in from my source. After concatenating first name and the last name, let's say 101 is coming in out. In my target, I want the salary. So before that only, I want to check for 101 what is the salary. So what I do, I will look up, is this 101 exists in my salaries file. Corresponding employee ID exists in salaries file. If it exists, give me the corresponding salary. So let's assume that your salaries file contains records like 101, 10,000 salary, 102, 20,000 salary, 103, 30,000 salary. So if you have, this is salaries data, the salaries.txt file. I'm talking about a very simple example. Let's say you have a salaries file and you have a employees file. I'm moving away from informatica. Employees file, which has employee ID, employee name, employee last name, first name, and all that stuff. But I want to put this data let's assume, I'm giving a very simple example. This is one file and this is another file. The salaries file. Please understand it very carefully. How to do it, we will see later. Let's say this is 101, last name Bill or Gates or Bill, and you want to load the data into a table which it wants employee ID, concatenated first name and last name, e-name, is salary. So salary is coming from a different file. So how will you do it? In a very simple example, I have two sets of data. This is one flat file, this is another flat file. So what I do, manually what you do, you look into this table or file, you will look into this file, 101, does it exist? So then give me that salary. Look at it from a very practical example, simple example, that you have two files of data. In one file you have 101 Gates bill and another file has 101 salaries of employees. But you want to send it output to somebody, a output value in a sheet of paper. So what you do, from 101 bill and Gates, you concatenate, and to get the salaries from that file, you look into that salary. Is this employee, the corresponding employee, the salary exists? That if it exists, you take it out and write the salary. What are you doing? You are looking into that salaries. What are you doing? You are trying to get a related value. Based on what you are trying to get a related value? Based on a condition saying that this employee ID, which is coming from my employee east file, does it have corresponding employee ID in my salaries file? If it exists, if it has, then give me the corresponding salary. So what we are doing, from employee file, you are looking into that salaries file to find out if that exists or not, that salaries exists or not. Looking up, looks up. It may be in informatica, the same concept. Your employee ID is coming in. You want a corresponding salaries from the salaries.txt file. You are looking towards that file, that is, looks up for that file to find a get a related value or the corresponding record exists or not. In this case, we want a related value based on what? The employee ID which is coming from my expression transformation. Does it exist in my salaries? condition. You need a condition. So you specify the condition, then give me the corresponding salaries. For this purpose, this transformation which looks up for values in a table or a flat file called as lookup transformation. So lookup transformation contains input port, output port, L port and R port. R port we will discuss later. Input port, data is coming in. Output port, data going out. What is L port? L port means on which table you are doing a lookup or on which flat file you are doing a lookup. Their corresponding fields are called lookup ports. So in our case, we are doing a lookup on salary. So these fields from the salaries.txt file, those are called lookup ports because they are coming from that file on which you did the lookup, and you can take these values out, values from this. That's why they are output port only. Now, whichever employee is coming in from your source or source qualifier or expression transformation in your lookup transformation, then it is called as input to that transformation. Input, that's why input port. You can take the data out, that's why it is as output port only. Output. So this is the importance of the lookup transformation. Now let me do this mapping and explain you the lookup transformation also. So employees, source qualifier, expression transformation, lookup for salaries, does it exist or not, then router transformation. If employee is not null, STJ employee table, employee is null, then it is error employee table. So this is what we are going to do. Now let me go to my designer, create, already we have defined the sources. So mapping, create, m underscore 7 underscore stg underscore employee underscore lookup. Sources, flat file, employees, the target, STG employee table, error employee. Now, before we go to the lookup, I want to introduce you to another concept called reusable transformations. What I mean by reusable transformation is, in a one mapping, if you have created a transformation and the same logic, same whatever there in that single transformation to be reused across more than one mapping, then call it as a transformation. A single transformation which can be used across more than one mapping, that is called as a reusable transformation. It has inheritance properties. Means one time you create it, then you can reuse it across multiple mappings. Where you will create the reusable transformation? In transformation developer. We define the source in the source analyzer, we define the target in the warehouse designer, we create the mapping. There is another component called the transformation developer. Whichever you create in this transformation developer, that is called a reusable transformation. Means a single transformation which can be reused across multiple mappings, can reuse in many times in multiple mappings, then it is called as reusable transformation. It has inheritance property. Which transformation cannot be used as reusable is source qualifier, application qualifier or normalizer. So how to create it? Go to the transformation developer. You create any transformation. Example, an expression transformation test. Here we will put it as, let's say, employee ID, name, sal, commission, and I create another total sal, and I say sal plus. Just giving an example. So you created under the transformation developer. Whatever you create under transformation developer can be reused across multiple mappings. Let me go to the mapping developer and open our example which we created, that stg emp_1. Rather than using this, I will use the transformation developer in which I have created it. It can be reused across other mappings. So what I do, from this transformation developer, I drag and drop. So then I will connect my employee number, employee name, salary, summation, my target table, price, as inheritance property. What I mean by this is, let me change something in this transformation developer. Let me put it as EMP number, and I add another column just for our discussion sake, bonus. Say OK. Now wherever it is used, it will change automatically. Employee number, employee name, and it has already added bonus. Cannot modify where you are using this transformation. You cannot modify the columns. If you want to do any modifications, you have to go to the transformation developer and change this. So how will I know if it is a reusable transformation? If you see this name, it will give you as a reusable transformation. So this is how the reusable transformation is used, created in the transformation developer, and you recreated it and reused across multiple mappings. So for example, if I have already created the transformation, let's take me the example of your joiner transformation, std employee joiner. I have already created my expression transformation with employee ID, concatenate first name and last name. For this same mapping we are doing with a different transformation, but we need an expression transformation. So please observe very carefully here. Already the mapping has been created. The same logic I want to use in another mapping. Same expression transformation, I want to use it. One way is recreate here, but if it is of the same logic, then I have already created it, then how to make it reusable? One way is go back to transformation developer, recreate the whole thing, and you reuse it across multiple mappings. The other way around is, already if you have created the transformation here, now go to the transformation tab, make reusable. Means one way to make reusable a transformation is go to the transformation developer and create it and use it across multiple mappings. Or already the transformation is created in one mapping, then you realize that this transformation is across multiple mappings. Then how to make it reusable? That's what I am showing you. Make as, open that mapping, open that transformation, go to the transformation tab and say make reusable. Then it will say a message converting the current transformation into reusable transformation, not reverse. Continue, yes, and you say OK. Now please observe in this transformation, the transformation developer, what makes change. It will be automatically created under the transformation developer. Then you can drag and drop here transformation. So what we do in our mapping, go to the lookup of this stg employee lookup, we drag our expression transformation into this, then we make the reconnection. How we create a reusable transformation. Now let me make the necessary connection from this qualifier, employee name, last name, first name and last name, address, city, state, code, country, phone number, then tax, email, gender, then we need salary. We'll take it from we'll use the lookup transformation that we will later. Native language, second language, third language, type and type. I need the dealership ID from here. Then from relay manage to date entered, drag and drop on the expression transformation. It will be invalid, but we will save the work. This is how we'll use the reusable transformation in our matrix. Now let us come to our question point, that is lookup transformation. So the purpose, again I will reiterate, the purpose of lookup transformation, lookup for values in a database object or in a flat file to get a corresponding related value. In our case, we need it for our salary, employees. For that particular employee ID, I need the salary. So what I am doing from a layman terms, if you look at it, I am getting data from a flat file. I want to find the corresponding salary from another file. I am talking from a manual purpose. You have two sheets of paper. One is your employees with all employees, and you have another sheet of paper with employee salary for each particular employee. But I want to prepare an output sheet with all that employee information plus the salary coming from another sheet. What we do practically, please practically think about it. What we do, we look into this employees file, sheet of paper. Is there corresponding employee ID exists in my salaries table or not, or salaries sheet or not? So if it exists, okay, let me get that salary and fill that my form. If it does not exist, then there is no salary for that employee. So in the final sheet, the salaries, what you say, there is no salaries for this employee. What we are doing, we are looking up into the salaries file. Same way, Informatica provides you with a transformation called a lookup transformation. Looks up for values with that table or a flat file, get a related value. It has input port, output port, and L port and R port. R port will L port means lookup port, on which file or table on which you are doing fields which are coming from that table or file on which you are doing lookup in our salaries file. That ports are called L ports. Those values you can take it out. That's why they are output. So we are checking for the corresponding employee ID in it. So that employee ID coming from your employees will be the input to that transformation. So I'll create the lookup transformation. How? Transformation create lookup. LKP is the naming convention. Salaries. Where is that file? We need the structure of that file. We are doing a lookup on a file. We need the structure, not the data. Data will come at the runtime. We need the structure of that file. How is that lookup file? So what we do, regarding the source button and target button, I will discuss later. I say import from flat file. The same way we define the structure of a flat file, here also we'll define the structure for our lookup. Put the field names on the first line. Is a comma delimited file. Test the data types. Finish. So this is a file which contains the employee ID and the salary coming from my lookup, from my file on which I did the lookup. So those fields which are coming from that file are called lookup ports. Cell ports are enabled. Can take these values out. So these are all output port. But we want employee ID which is coming from my source. Is that corresponding salary ID exists or not? So your employee ID coming from the source. So I rename this as input. So as we have discussed, we will check in a file Like employee list file, corresponding employee ID exists or not, condition. This employee ID is equal to that employee ID in this salaries file. So we will specify the condition. Like a joiner condition, this is also employee ID from the lookup table, that file, salaries and employee ID which is coming in. Here it will support 6 operators. Okay. So it will check and give you the salary from that salaries file. Now we got the salary information. Now we need to check if that employee ID which is coming from my source is null or not. If it is null, load it into error table. If it is not null, load it into stage employee table. We are splitting the data into multiple targets, so we will use a router transformation. So transformation, create router RTR employee. Let us look at the target table and get all those columns as per our target table layout. It is easy for us when we connect it. We need the employee ID. We'll take it from here. Employee name, address, city, state, zip code, country. Phone number out I need. Fax number. Gender out. I want the salary. Salary is not coming from my source. So I get the salary from here. Corresponding employee ID, salary. Then thing is the same. All is in the same system. Router transformation. Input. Like previous one, what we have done, create a group, that is stg underscore employee, and the condition is not is null, employee ID, error employee, null, employee ID, okay. I hope I don't need to give all this explanation again because we already done in the this mapping. The thing we need is I am doing it in a different way because to make you understand the lookup transformation, that gives clarity on that lookup. If you ask me really, do you need to use this? No, for transformation. But for the PD1 SC and the fact tables, you need that. So we talking about. So this is how we create the lookup transformation, the corresponding router transformation. Please open your sheet 10.8.1b and write source. Already you have defined, but write it down so that you will have clarity when you do the lab and understand it. You have defined the source and the targets. For complete sake, please write down. And also for the lookup transformation, to import the lookup salaries.text, same path. We are defining the structure. We import the that file as your lookup transformation. So look for values in that file or a table, get the related usable transformation. Under the transformation developer, you will create a new transformation across multiple mapping transformation. You have already created the transformation mapping and you want across things, then you open it up and make it as a read. So I hope you have written this, employees and error employees, pass underscore. Now let me go back. Again, I will create the transformation for lookup for your understanding. Lookup, let's say salaries for 1. Import from the flat file, all files, salaries.txt, import field name first line, comma delimited, and finish. So when you open this, fields which are coming from the file on which we did the lookup, those are called lookup codes. That's why these are enabled. Then this data from this can be taken out, so they are output fields only. Then employee ID coming from my source. That employee ID is equal to this employee ID. So I specify the condition. This employee ID is equal to this employee ID. It can have multiple operators. I created it to make you understand how to create a lookup transformation. So this is how you create the lookup transformation. Now we will discuss how this will work when you execute it. We have created this mapping. Now you execute. To execute this, what should we do? Let me create the session and the workflow, then I will explain you how internally it works. Task developer. Create the task S underscore M underscore 7 underscore E underscore E underscore. Please observe very carefully. Mapping, source, path. Let me take it from the previous task developer. I'll show you for you to write it down. So this is your path where your source file exists. You are loading the data into 2 target tables. So STG connection, change bulk to normal, error employee, STG connection, change bulk to normal. Now here is the most important thing. On which table, on which file you are doing a lookup? On salaries, the file. Like when you have a source to extract the data from a source, you need to give the path for that file. Same way, if you are doing a lookup on a file, then you have to specify the path for that file, because you need that data at runtime from that salaries.txt file. You need that data at runtime, put it in salaries.txt file, so you specify the path. If it is a table on which you are doing a lookup, then you specify the connection. But if it is your file, then you have to specify. Where you specify? Under this source, qualifier, target, whatever transformation you create, it will show up in this source, target, all transformation, whichever you create in mapping, it will show up here. For lookup, we have to specify, like a path for lookup. For source, we specify the path. Here also we specify the path and the file name, salaries.txt file and the source file. If it is a table, you have to specify the connection here, then salaries.txt file and given the path. Then okay. So please remember, whenever in a mapping you have a lookup transformation, you have to specify. If it is a file, the path. If it is a table, you have to specify the connection, like your connection, right? You have to specify. The workflow designer, I'll drag my session, create the workflow. Now if you execute this, what happens? Please understand very carefully this concept. When you execute this, now this is your transformation mapping. For source, you have specified the path of your flat file. For lookup, you specified the path where that lookup file exists, the file with that data exists. For targets, we have specified the connections, created the workflow, and you say execute. Please observe, understand very carefully. What does Informatica server will do? Wherever the source file exists, it will go and on your Informatica server, extracts the data completely onto the same way. We have a lookup transformation. Based on the connection on which you are doing lookup, it will go and connect it to that. It will go that path. If it is a table, it will connect. If it is a file, it will go and goes to that path, gets the complete data into the lookup transformation cache. Lookup transformation also has a cache inbuilt. So at runtime, if you have a lookup in your mapping, at runtime, it will go to the table or file and get the complete data and puts it in the cache. So this is the lookup cache. And data on which file you are doing a lookup, it is in the cache of Informatica server. All the data from employees file is in the Informatica server. Please understand, I cannot show it more pictorially than this. So you have this in Informatica server executed. Informatica server went to that file, got the data completely from the source. Simultaneously, if you have a lookup transformation, it will go to that path if it is a file and gets the data into the cache. Now one record at a time it will process. So the first record comes out of your source qualifier, then goes out of the expression transformation, put the condition employee ID of lookup is equal to employee ID input. What does Informatica server do? This 101, based on the condition, it will scan the cache. Employee ID of this input 101, does it exist or not? Based on this condition, it will scan the cache. 101 exists. So which field you are taking out from the lookup? Salary field. So what is the corresponding value for the salary? It will be 10,000 for this employee ID, that will be returned. And the corresponding values coming from your expression transformation will come into the router transformation like this. Here it is 10,000, 101, concatenated first name and last name, Steve Jobs, goes into your router transformation as an input group, then goes to the group condition. I don't have a space, that's why I didn't put the default group. Checks the condition, employee ID is not null, so it goes to the stage employee table and inserts it. Second record comes in, 102 Bill Gates, 102 goes, scans the cache, based on the condition exists, so returns the corresponding salary, and 102 concatenated first name and last name from your expression, goes to your router, checks the condition, not null, goes to the stage employee table, then it in. Then 103 goes in, scans the cache. Now look at the 103 record. For that particular employee ID, record does not exist. Now what lookup will do? What lookup will transformation will do at runtime? If the corresponding 103 employee ID condition fails, the condition is now failed. 103 employee ID which is coming from my file of employees does not exist. My salaries.txt file. So if it does not exist, what it will? So it will return a null value. The condition fails. Whichever column you are taking out from that lookup, that is salary, lookup port salary you are taking out, that will return a null value. Whenever the condition fails, it will return a null value. The condition is satisfied, whatever the value is there in that lookup table or file, that will be returned. So in this case, it will return the null value, goes to the router, salary null value, but employee ID 103, so not null, goes to the target table and inserts it. Null value does not exist. Null value will be returned by the lookup when the condition fails. In this case 103 does not exist, condition fails, so salary will have a null value. Now next record is coming in, employee ID null. Employee ID is itself null, scan the cache, does not exist, for null to null, so it will return. The value will be null value from the salary. Employee ID is null, but name is concatenated first name and last name, goes to your router, then goes to your condition, group condition, is null employee ID true, that is group 2 is condition is success, so the corresponding data goes into the target table, then loads it to the error employee table. How? Internal process of transformation. So, lookup transformation, whenever you use a lookup transformation mapping, you have to specify the path if it is a file or connection if it is a table, properties at runtime, informatica server, how it behaves, whatever is your code, connect to that or file path, gets the complete data of your XML. How many lookup transformations you have in your, all those lookups will go to the corresponding file path or a table connection, extract the complete data within the cache, then one row by row, the informatica process. Based on the condition, if it is satisfied, sub cache it can. If it satisfies, it will return the value. If the condition fails, it will return a null value for the field which is taken. Now you go ahead and write this, the 10.9b holding tab. Important concept, projects, session name, source file directory, source file name, file type direct, target connection. You have two connections. That's why for lookup, you have to specify the path, the workflow. So please be focused, understand this, very carefully look at this. This I am done for chapter 7. Chapter 8 we will discuss if you have multiple files at your networks and all that stuff. But here the most important concept, minor transformation, lookup transformation. Please complete this lab. The lab, please. Okay. Then later we'll get chapter 8.